Hey everybody, it's JT. I waited a while to review it. Obviously I got busy in the meantime, but we're gonna knock it out today. Talk about this pi2 rebuildable dripping atomizer from House of Zombi. I also want to add, there's a lot of reviews out there. Just a quick Google search. I was able to see a list of reviews. A lot of great reviewers have already done their review of this atomizer. I might not cover things other people have covered. If you think I missed something, go and research some of the other reviewers. They've done reviews of this probably a couple weeks ago. So the pi2 atty, really its thing or its claim to fame or what it's all about is a postless rebuildable dripping atomizer. I think we are all familiar with a atomizer with 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 2, sometimes 1, but posts sticking up from the deck with a post hole in it for the leads of your wire, your coils, okay? There's none of that. It's flat, and you can see by the pictures very, very quickly. So, I spent $130 on this atomizer. That's a pretty, I don't know, it's a lot of money to me. I purchased this retail. I think the first day it was available down here in Florida, so I paid top dollar for it. But when you pick it up, presentation-wise, nice little box. It's got some information, recommended retail price on the side. Then you open it up, and you get this little fancy jewelry type box, right? And all I can think of when I see this is, he went to Jared. He went to Jared. So you open this puppy up, and I know it's hard to see here, we'll show it in the close-up, but there is a light in this box. It is shining beautifully on the included atomizer. Pretty cool? Or nonsense? I'll let you decide that. I gotta tell you, man, packaging means a lot. I got excited when I opened it, and I felt like I was proposing to myself, and it just, I don't know, it was kind of a special moment with myself. So they went overboard. I don't know, that seems derogatory. They paid a lot of attention to packaging. Right off the bat, when I see the packaging done like this, I already have high expectations for that product. I feel like if a company goes that deep into packaging and presentation, then everything else should be dialed in. It should be a great, well thought out product. So, at a glance, postless atomizer, pretty cool. The deck is very cool, very well designed, aesthetically speaking. Lots of engravings, a large copper block in the middle. Just a couple things. When I first bought this atomizer, I got it home after picking it up, and no, actually when I first bought this atomizer, opened it up in the car, installed it on a mod, and popped the top cap off, just looking at it, I broke the O-ring that was on the base of this atty. I broke the O-ring in the car, searched around in this fancy box, and there were no extras included. Maybe not a big deal. But before I even got home ready to build it, I had broken the O-ring. So that was a bit frustrating for me. And it turns out, and I could be wrong on some of this, but the information I gathered was, it turns out they sent the first round of atties out with the wrong size O-ring, and were fixing it with the next round of pi2 atties. But that didn't help me at all. I came home and I started swapping out and finding some different O-rings. Luckily, I have the ability to do that. I ended up taking an O-ring off a VHO Raiju atomizer, and it has worked pretty well so far, not had an issue. I feel like we need to do the close-up now, pretty early on, and then I'll talk about it more because, with it being such a different design, a lot of what I'm going to say doesn't really make sense until you really understand how this base, how this atomizer is built and meant to be used. So let's go into the close-up and we'll come back and do some more of this stuff. So House of Zombi's pi2 atty. There's your box, and they got all fancy on us. Inside of the cardboard box, you've got this jewelry type box with pi2 on it. Pretty cool. But here's the real crazy part. When you open it up, it's got a light in it. Okay. Pretty fancy. A little unneeded, but it's kind of a cool feature, I guess. And here's the atty itself. You've got a pretty cool zombie type portrait design on the side. I think that's kind of cool. Airflow on the side, one on each side there. This top piece, it's a 3-piece, so this top does turn and you can adjust that airflow. You can close off some of it. On the bottom, a little bit of information and a protruding copper 510 right there. So very easy to use on hybrid style devices. I will say on some of my regulated devices, that is actually protruding a little bit far for me. And I've run the risk of kind of crushing my adjustable 510 on different box devices, but not bad. So as you can see, look where your drip tip goes. It is insulated by Delrin, and I like that. And I'm going to pull off this top piece and show you. And you see, this is all Delrin underneath, and I really like this part of it. So your drip tip is insulated to cut down on some heat, and then this is the portion, obviously, that gives you your airflow control. You know, you spin this piece and it lines up with your air holes here, okay? But I dig this design. Kind of a heat dissipator, and that's the centerpiece there, nothing special. So we'll put this back together. Okay, but it's really all about the base with the pi2 atty, because this is a postless base atomizer, meaning there are no large posts sticking up that we're used to with rebuildables, and you stick your wire through, capture them. This is different. They kind of tried to come in and change the game a bit. So your wire leads, the leads off of your coils, actually go into these holes and are secured with the flathead screwdrivers, or the flathead screws you see here in the side of the base. I gotta tell you, this is an extremely conductive design. That big chunk of copper right through the middle leads to really good conductivity. And I say that only by, I don't have any testing for that, but just the way these coils light up and how easy it is to get them firing evenly. Now, we went over some shortcomings in the face-to-face portion of this video, but I want to point out a couple things. It is very important, in my opinion, when you get this atomizer, to clean it thoroughly. Okay? When I got mine, I had small machine metal shavings down in these holes, and it caused a lot of shorts. As I built my first couple sets of coils looking down in there, I could see little sparks. And come to find out that it was just needed to be cleaned very well, especially down in those holes. I mentioned this before, but due to this design and the way these screws on the side capture the wire, you're gonna have, in my opinion, a better time with thicker wire. 28 gauge, 26 gauge, it's probably gonna be a little bit frustrating. And that was pretty rough because I use a good deal of 28 and 26 gauge wire in my building. So I really had to go outside of my norm and go with some 24 and even 22. And I really don't like building with 22. It's just too low of a resistance for my taste. I also mentioned that when I got this atomizer, within the first 10 minutes, my O-ring broke. And I was kind of stuck not being able to use this atty. The O-ring that you see on there right now is from a VHO RDA atomizer. It works perfectly. I've been using it ever since because the atty did not come with a spare. In that pretty sexy box they send, there were no spare O-rings, so I made do with what I had. It's a pretty good looking atomizer, I'll be honest. I love the look of it. I like the airflow control portion. I like the Delrin that's built into the top cap. I like the engraving both on the deck and on the side here. But it ends up being a pretty hot vape for me because of the wire that tends to work best in this atomizer. So just on that alone, it doesn't get a lot of use, but it is a nice atomizer and it is a pretty innovative design. Okay, so now you see what I'm saying. You've got this flat deck with 4 holes in it, 2 negative and 2 positive. So you build your coil and 1 lead goes in a negative, 1 lead goes in a positive. If you're doing duals, you do that 2 times and you're good to go. You secure them from the flat heads on the side. My main thing is, well, a couple things. When you're building and you're prepping your coils for installation, you really have to make sure the leads are the same length. Because basically when you stick these in and install them on the deck, it's all about height, right? If the leads are a little bit longer on one coil, that coil is going to sit above the other one. It's going to sit higher, and ultimately there's more wire in that coil and it's not going to heat up evenly, if that makes sense. Whereas a traditional, I guess, rebuildable dripping atomizer with normal post, you install it and you make sure that it's even on both sides. On the pi2 atty, you want to make sure they are the same height. The other thing that gets me, it is just a little bit of I don't know, something for you to keep in mind, is that thinner gauge wire just does not do really well with this atomizer for me, in my experience. 28 gauge, really tough to secure, even 26, and today I built with 24 gauge and it's even a little bit tough. It does work, the 24 is fine. 22 gauge would secure much easier, but I don't build with 22 gauge. Comes off a little bit too hot for me, not my thing. So if you are a vapor that likes to build with thinner, higher gauge wire, you might have some issues with this, or you might have to come up with some creative ways to get it to secure down in that base. I also mentioned to make sure and clean this atomizer out. I had some metal shavings down in the holes that caused some problems when I was first building. Not a huge deal, but just something I wanted to mention. And the atomizer, it gets pretty hot for me. You know, your coils are a lot of times pretty close to the base itself, so the atty tends to warm up. But they did account for that, I think, with all of the Delrin insulator, you know, on the top of this, the top cap here. It kind of helps to dissipate some of that heat, but it still gets warm. So leaking, again, I am not using the correct O-ring that the manufacturers meant for me to use with this atomizer. So you could say I was really never set up for success. I am using an aftermarket O-ring that was meant for a different atomizer. I do get some leaking here and there down past that O-ring that prevents me from, you know, really using this atomizer a lot. It's just always on my mind. Am I leaking juice into my device, especially regulated devices? It's a very conductive style base. I enjoy that part. It looks great, right? I like the look of it. I like the height. It's nice and compact looking, but it just hasn't really been one of those atomizers that's worked its way into my day-to-day vaping. And I'll be honest with you on that one. When the O-ring broke on me the first day, I got a little frustrated. You know, not the end of the world, but I was unable to use it. And had I not had tons of other atomizers at my disposal, I would have probably been a little more upset having to wait to purchase or get a replacement O-ring from House of Zombi. So the pi2 Addy, it's innovative, it's something new, it's something different. Just on that alone, a lot of people will love this thing, I think. For me, it was cool to play with. It's a little annoying to build on, to make sure my coils are the same height. And again, it forces me to use thicker gauge wire than I prefer to use. So for me, it's not a day-to-day atomizer, but it's a pretty cool design, and it's well built for what it is. So that's the House of Zombi pi2 rebuildable dripping atomizer. Again, make sure you comment. Let me know what you think. This has been out for a while. I know a lot of people have this Addy. I'm curious to see what you think about it and the builds that you enjoy. Mainly for my benefit, but for other vapors and people that are thinking about dropping the money on something like this, let them have some tips and tricks in the comment section to help guide them, right? Maybe help them save some money, or let them know that this is right up their alley and to go out and grab one as soon as they can. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.